My aunt was a professor at Hampton University. She lied on her marriage license. She said she was 57, but she really was 59. She met him at a nightclub near Fort Eustis with live entertainment. He was a black man, handsome, brown skin, with slick back processed hair like Sammy Davis Jr. or Nat King Cole. He was younger than her. He was single and loved good music. He worked at the military golf course. He was a golf pro for the U.S. military golf team. My aunt was a good catch. She was the head of the music department. She had graduated from Juilliard. She owned a home, no husband or children to worry about. She traveled to Italy every year for the Spoleto Music Festival. She wore quality clothing she purchased in New York. She refused to buy clothing in Virginia. At Virginia stores, colored people were not allowed to try on clothes. You had to buy it and take it home to try it on. After midnight, he helped her put her chinchilla wrap around her shoulders. She agreed to see him again. Her neighbor friend, who had come to the nightclub with her, raised her eyebrows, watching these two newly introduced lovebirds. The golf pro walked my aunt and her girlfriend to her car. He watched them drive off. He couldn't believe his luck. His life was about to change. He drove home slowly, breathing in the cool night air. Then when he got home, as soon as he got home, he told his wife he wanted a divorce. After the golf pro proposed marriage to my aunt, he and my aunt drove to New York to get her brother and sister's blessing, the family's approval. Her sister crossed her arms. Her sister was also a college professor in New York, and she was not impressed by the golf pro. He's not of her caliber, her sister said. He's not on her level. They were sitting in the living room, listening to baseball on the radio. Their brother was more understanding. I don't see anything wrong with it, her brother said. He served his country. He's a veteran, and she's happy. All right, the sister said, turning up the volume of the radio. Ultimately, her siblings gave their blessing. My aunt's fiancé came into the room. He had gone out for a pack of Chesterfields. Welcome to the family, the brother told him. It was wonderful. Things were changing. Brown versus the Board had just happened, and the Montgomery bus boycott had been a success. Glamorous female stars like Hazel Scott and Lena Horne were on the scene. Talented, beautiful black women who refused to play maids. My aunt's new husband moved into her house with her grand piano, pipe organ, gold coins, sterling silver flatware, and large cherry desk. Her husband still worked as a golf pro, but he no longer had to pay for food, rent, phone, or utilities. First thing, he bought himself a new sports car. Only thing else he had to pay was for child support. Each day, he and his new wife drank highballs. He mixed drinks behind the bar. Each night, he placed her drink on the grand piano or the church organ where she played and pedaled her feet. Everything was great. Everything was wonderful. He was the perfect husband. He was perfect until he started having an affair with a widow lady around the corner with a lot of money. She inherited it from her husband's mortuary business. It was very successful. It was the most successful mortuary business on the black side of town. Before she got married, my aunt had $300,000 in the bank. But her husband had spent a good chunk of that money during their marriage, and they still had about half of it. And she was in her 70s when she got breast cancer. Her surgery was successful, but when the hospital social worker called and asked her husband to come pick her up and take her home, he wouldn't come. He went to the neighbor's house. He told them that she was dying, too weak to see visitors or to talk on the phone. Then he called the hospital and told the social worker he wanted his wife transferred to a nursing home. Meanwhile, my aunt's neighbor was suspicious. This neighbor called the family up north and said my aunt was in the hospital and her husband refused to bring her home. The family came down to Virginia. We found my aunt sitting up in bed watching all my children, laughing, cracking jokes, and eating a box of chocolates sent to her by one of her students. We drove her home to her paid-off house. Behind his smile, her husband was sad. He was sad because his wife was healthy and not going to die. He needed a plan. He knew what to do. He hired one of his girlfriends to be his wife's nurse. Things were looking up. It was a new day. Just a few years ago, Sidney Poitier had become the first black man to get an Academy Award, Oscar, for Best Actor. Also, his wife was slowing down. My aunt, she was aging. Surely he would gain control of everything very soon. My aunt's husband wanted control of her money and her belongings, but something happened that messed up his plan. He had a heart attack at age 81 and he died. My aunt was still alive. He died first. We all went down to Virginia for his funeral. My aunt looked good. She was being well cared for by the lady caregiver. We went back up north, not worried about the situation. Meanwhile, my aunt's neighbor was suspicious. She called us and said, "There's a crowd of people in your aunt's house. They're all trying to get your aunt to sign a piece of paper. Her caregiver, a lawyer, a preacher, an accountant, they're all telling your aunt, if you just sign this piece of paper, everything will be all right." Well, before we could get down there, my aunt had signed a piece of paper, a legal document. The lady caregiver now had power of attorney. She had legal right to everything my aunt owned. The house and its contents, the cars and their content, the bank accounts and its content. In exchange, the lady caregiver would take care of my aunt for the rest of her life until the Lord called her to heaven. My aunt lived a few more years, almost to 95. She died 1 month before her 95th birthday. That year, the black girl, Debbie Turner, became the third black American to be Miss America. After my aunt's funeral, the lady caregiver held a family meeting. She told the family that, unfortunately, there's no money left in any of my aunt's accounts. It had all been spent on medical bills, etc. Then she quickly excused herself and left us to speak with her attorney. The lady caregiver's adult son had moved into my aunt's house. He was now driving her aqua blue Thunderbird around town. My aunt was buried beside her beloved husband, side by side at Hampton National Cemetery. He did not get to inherit her money. She outsmarted him by living longer. She was a professor at Hampton University, the head of the music department. My aunt led an accomplished life.